Who doesn't love a tasty meatball recipe? This one is baked in the oven for even browning and easy cleanup, and then it's simmered in the best homemade marinara sauce. I love these baked meatballs for an easy dinner recipe, but they're also great for meal prep to enjoy later in the week or even months into the future. And with how delicious they are, you won't even know that they are gluten-free and low carb. So let me show you how to make them. Many people inaccurately think that eggs help to add moisture to meatballs, but too many eggs can actually make them more dense. That's why I'm only using one egg as a binder in today's recipe. But what does help to make meatballs moist when you're not using a panade of breadcrumbs and milk is chopped onions. You guys have seen how much moisture onions can release when sauteed, and they'll help to release some of that moisture into the meatballs as well. You'll need 1/3 cup of diced onion for this recipe, and I like to dice it pretty finely so that there's no super large chunks. And since I chopped half an onion today, I'll save the leftovers to use in my scrambled eggs and stir fries later this week. In addition to adding moisture, the chopped onion, along with a few other ingredients like freshly chopped herbs, also helps to prevent the meatballs from becoming too dense. Think of these ingredients, along with Parmesan cheese that we'll add in a bit, as ones that create little nooks and crannies of flavor within the meatballs. I'm using 1/4 cup of finely chopped fresh parsley, but you could use a combination of other tender herbs as well. So I'll measure that out and set it aside and save the leftover chopped parsley to use later this week. Now, I don't know if it's possible to have an Italian meatball recipe without garlic, although I personally think garlic is a requirement in most savory recipes. You guys know I'm a big fan. And for this recipe, you'll need 3 garlic cloves. At this point, you can preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit because we're making baked meatballs today. You can of course make meatballs in a pan on the stove, but baking them is just so darn easy. So let's talk meat for these meatballs. You'll need 1.5 pounds of ground meat, and you can use your favorite, whether that's ground beef, ground pork, ground turkey, ground lamb, etc., etc. I personally like a combination of ground beef and ground pork, and I usually go 50-50, or today I grabbed 1 pound of ground beef and 1/2 pound of ground pork. To that, you'll add 1 large egg, the 1/3 cup of finely chopped onion, 1/4 cup of almond flour, 1/4 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese, the 1/4 cup of chopped parsley, those 3 garlic cloves, which you can mince straight into the bowl, 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground black pepper. Mix all of that together with your hands until it's just combined. Do be careful not to overmix it, as that will then compact everything and again contribute to dense meatballs, which is what we don't want. Use a medium cookie scoop to scoop out a portion of the meat mixture and then roll it between your hands. I'm using my favorite OXO cookie scoop, which you guys have seen me use on many recipes, and I'll link it below. Now, you don't have to use a cookie scoop, but I do love that it keeps the meatballs all the same size, which means that they cook evenly, and it also ensures you'll end up with exactly 30 meatballs, which fits perfectly on 1 sheet pan. See, there is a method to my madness when it comes to recipe ratios. Bake the meatballs for about 20 minutes or until they're lightly browned on the outside and just cook through. I like to cook mine for 18 minutes and then set the top broiler on for the last 2 minutes so they get nice and browned. And while the meatballs are baking, let's make a homemade marinara sauce. There's just 5 simple ingredients, and while yes, it's easy to grab jarred marinara sauce at the store, the flavor of homemade just tastes fresher, and fresher always equals better. The first ingredient is 1 small onion. Mine is not so small today, so my marinara sauce will be a bit more chunky, but you can always add as much or as little onion as you'd like. And once that's done, add it to a bowl. There are 2 fresh herbs in this recipe, basil and thyme, and together both will invoke all those lovely Italian flavors that you know and love. Pile several basil leaves on top of each other, roll them together, and then either thinly slice them or chop them up. It's up to you on how much texture you'd like in your marinara sauce, but I aim for about 1 tablespoon of chopped basil. And then for the fresh thyme, remove the leaves from the stem and then roughly chop up about 1 tablespoon of fresh thyme as well. The last ingredient to prep is 4 garlic cloves, so just peel those and then take everything over to the stove. Add 1 tablespoon of olive oil to a pot over medium-high heat and saute the onion for 3 to 4 minutes or until it's translucent. Then add the minced garlic and saute that for another 30 seconds or so until it becomes fragrant. Add 1 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes along with the chopped thyme and 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. And hold off on adding the basil right now. It's more tender, so you'll only stir that in at the very end. Simmer this for 20 to 25 minutes to let the flavors meld, then remove it from the heat and stir in the chopped fresh basil. Now, since I'm gonna use this right away, I'm going to transfer it to my large braiser pan, but you can always make this marinara sauce ahead of time and store it, and I've got storage details on the full blog post. At this point, the meatballs are now done, and when you take them out of the oven, you'll notice that they've oozed a bit. This is totally normal, and it's just some of that fat seeping out. But that falls right off as soon as you pick them up. And if you cut into one of them, you'll see that even without breadcrumbs, they've got a wonderful texture that's not too dense, and they're beautifully golden on the outside. Of course, you can enjoy these meatballs with a variety of sauces, including a romesco sauce or even a chimichurri sauce. But if you want to serve them up in a marinara sauce, you can just plop the meatballs into the pan, roll them around in the sauce, and then simmer the pan on low to keep them warmed through. Before serving, you can sprinkle some fresh parsley for a pop of green, and I love to eat these over some spiralized zucchini noodles. But you can also serve them up as an appetizer and just stick a toothpick in each one for the perfect bite-sized snack. These meatier meatballs are loaded with flavor, nice and moist without the use of bread, and a staple meal prep recipe in my kitchen. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, share the recipe with your family and friends, and I will see you again in the next video.